Adam Small here again from My Music Masterclass, and today we have yet another review for you. Kiwi Ears sent us their Orchestra Lite IEMs, and we're gonna check them out. But before we do, let's do the disclaimer, which we always do on this channel. Kiwi Ears sent us this product in exchange for the video that you're watching right now, but they didn't tell us to say anything specific or coach us in any way. We always make unbiased reviews. This one will be unbiased as well, so let's get to it. So here are the Orchestra Lite in-ear monitors. For those of you who watch the channel, you'll know that I just reviewed the Orchestra 2 in-ear monitors from Kiwi Ears as well. So I might compare them a little bit, but they are different IEMs. First of all, the Orchestra Lite IEMs are a bit smaller than the Orchestra 2s. And that's mainly because you have 10 balanced armatures in the Orchestra 2s versus 8 balanced armatures in the Orchestra Lites. There's also a difference of about $100 between these products. While the Orchestra 2s cost around $349 USD, these Orchestra Lites are about $249 USD. Now I'm gonna go into all the specs and details in a minute, but before I do, I just wanna say one thing. This isn't just a lesser version of the Orchestra 2s. The title kind of alludes to that. You know, you have Orchestra 2 and you have Orchestra Lite, but it's not just the light version of the Orchestra 2, in my opinion. I actually like it for different reasons, and you know, like I said, let's do the specs right now, but I'm gonna get into all this. We have 8 balanced armatures, including ultra tweeters and subwoofer drivers. We have a 3-way crossover here, so the bass is at 20 Hertz to 200 Hertz, the mids from 200 Hertz to 800 Hertz, and the treble from 2.5 kilohertz all the way to 10 kilohertz. In the Kiwi Ears literature, they state that these IEMs are supposed to be like studio monitors, meaning that they're supposed to have a very neutral and clean and detailed sound. Now, of course, they're not saying that the Orchestra Lites are going to emulate near-field monitors or any studio monitors because, you know, there's air that moves, there's all that kind of stuff. And when you have in-ear monitors all the way into your ears, you know, that's just a different sound. That is an IEM type of sound, which is a bit different. But again, what they're focusing on in the literature and marketing is that these are neutral IEMs without a huge curve and without big boosts that, you know, color the sound. In the box, you obviously get the in-ear monitors, you get a removable cable, a bunch of assorted ear tips, and a case. Here's the case. It has a bit of protection. It's not super hard. I definitely wouldn't run it over with a vehicle, but you know, you can put your stuff in here and you're good to go. This differs from the Orchestra 2 case. As you can see, it's a bit bigger, different shape, a little sturdier, but you know, this is a fine case. The cable it comes with is quite nice. It's light, it feels strong, and it has a decent texture to it. Technically, it's a slightly thinner and lighter cable than what's included with the Orchestra 2s. One thing to note before I put these things in my ears, I put K-Bear 07 ear tips on this because, you know, I know they fit my ears really well and have a good seal, and I like them better than the included ear tips. I had a couple pairs laying around because I believe I got 5 pairs of these ear tips for $8 or something like that on Amazon. And for those of you who are experienced with in-ear monitors, you probably have your favorite ear tips already. I have a couple pairs of these lying around. I have a couple pairs of spin fits. I've tried a lot of different ones, and to be honest, I like different ear tips with different IEMs. So that's a whole other rabbit hole that I'm not gonna get into because the ear tips do affect the sound. But for now, I'm just gonna tell you that I am using these K-Bear 07s and I'm getting a good seal with my own ears, with my size of my ear hole, right? So that it is sealing completely so I get good bass response. All right, so I have the IEMs in my ears, obviously, and I have a very good seal, meaning that I can't hear much of the outside world. They're good with the noise isolation. Also, I find them comfortable. They're comfortable for me. Again, everyone has different size ears. If you have really small ears, maybe you would have a problem. I know that some people had issues with the Orchestra 2s because they're pretty big. So if you have small ears, they might be too big for you. These are slightly smaller. I've had no problem with either. The Orchestra 2s were fine. These are also fine. These are slightly smaller, so I'm just putting that out there. In terms of the sound of these things, I did a lot of listening leading up to this video. I have very versatile musical tastes, and aside from being a professional bass player, I'm also an audio engineer, and I've mixed a lot of records and produced a lot. So I have different expectations for my IEMs than maybe some others. The easiest way to describe what I'm hearing with the Orchestra Lites is to start with the Orchestra 2s, which I just reviewed. If you've already seen my review of the Orchestra 2s, I apologize because I'm going to repeat a couple things, but if you haven't, you might want to check that out because, you know, these are great too. So with the Orchestra 2s, I definitely got a very nice, very clean, hi-fi sounding sound in my ears, which was nice and pleasant for listening. There was no harshness on the high end, and the sub bass was, you know, pretty thick. And like I said, listening to music in all genres with the Orchestra 2s is a really nice experience, whether it be jazz or electronic music, metal, rock, whatever. It all sounds really good. However, I wouldn't consider the Orchestra 2s exactly neutral because they really do pump that sub bass a bit. And there is a little bit of a U shape. There's a bit of a valley in between, you know, the low and the high, scooping out some of the mids. And while that makes for a hi-fi sounding listening experience, it isn't exactly neutral, like I said. If we look at the audio graph from the Orchestra Lite next to the Orchestra 2, you can see without me really saying anything, but essentially it's just more of a flat response. Of course, it's not completely flat, but there's much less of a dip in the mid-range because it's not as hyped on the poles. Now let me say that there is no exact right way to make an in-ear monitor. And if there was, there wouldn't be so many options offering different sonic signatures. Some people want a lot of bass, right? The bass heads. They want so much bass that it will rattle your brain and possibly cause severe brain damage. Well, probably not, but you get the idea. Some people want a warmer experience. Some people want more detailed highs. It's all different. But there's also different usage cases for IEMs. And as a musician, sometimes I have to put on two different hats, meaning when I'm listening to music casually, I often want to hear things in a slightly different way than when I am on the stage and I'm using IEMs to actually monitor my environment and my bass, which I'm going to bring out in 1 second. So as a bass player, when I'm either on stage or I'm doing something here in the studio, making a bass video or doing anything like that, I want to hear what my bass sounds like in my IEMs. And I don't want it to be colored too much. I don't want hyped bass or hyped highs because I want to hear what it really sounds like going into my DAW or on stage, you know, going to the front of house. So that's a different hat I have to put on, not this one, but a different mindset. It's the same thing as audiophiles. They get these $10,000 speakers with this tube amp and they listen to music and it just sounds beautiful. But studio engineers, you know, when you're recording and when you're mixing, you want it to be clean and detailed. You don't want any hype so that you know exactly what to cut, what to boost, how to mix your tracks. And that's not always the most musically pleasing system to listen and enjoy music from. It can be, but not always. The thing I really like about these IEMs is that the mid-range is more accurate than a lot of IEMs I've heard. If you've seen some of my other IEM videos, you'll know that I bring out this bass sometimes or another one and I solo the J pickup, the bridge pickup, to get this exact sound. Now, as a bassist, I'm not typically going for that 100% soloed back pickup sound, but it's the easiest way to describe what kind of mid-range pops through these IEMs. And with a lot of IEMs with the U-shaped profile, once you start boosting that bass and the highs, your mids get a bit weaker and they just don't punch through as much. They don't have as much energy. So these in-ear monitors actually sound more like my bass than the Orchestra 2s do. And when I'm making bass videos down here, if I'm monitoring myself, instead of wearing my over-the-ear cans, I can wear these and they sound accurate, you know, and that is cool for me. Now again, I like the Orchestra 2s for different reasons and they sound amazing, especially when you're listening to music. But if you're looking for a much more neutral environment, you know, these are much more along those lines. In terms of listening to music, these are more mid-range forward than the Orchestra 2s. They just are. It definitely still has a good amount of bass if you get a good seal, which you always need, but not as much bass as the Orchestra 2s. So this is a preference thing again. Also, with more pronounced mid-range, You know, certain instruments are gonna pop more, right? Your snare is gonna be a little poppier, maybe the vocals. Different elements of the mix are going to stand out a bit more. So some people don't like a lot of higher mids because they get ear fatigue from that. That hasn't happened to me with these. These sound very pleasant when listening to music, but they are different than listening to music with the Orchestra 2s. Because of that scoop you have with the Orchestra 2s, I don't really know how to describe that sound. Maybe I would say a warmer sound with less like in-your-face mids. You know, it depends on your preference, but to be honest, as for listening to music, I like both for different reasons. To sum this video up, these are the second IEMs I've gotten from Kiwi ears. I'm impressed. I was impressed by the last ones. These are also impressive, and I'm gonna be using them here and on the stage. So that does it for now. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. If you have any comments or questions, please leave them here. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so because we always need more subscribers. See you next time.